You open this door with the key of reason. Beyond it is another dimension. A dimension of truth. A dimension of freedom. A dimension of joy. You're moving into the land of both the ideal and the real, of the possible and the actual. You've just crossed over into the Capitalist Corner.
Where reason meets reality, welcome to the Capitalist Corner.
Folks, where reason meets reality, happy to see you guys on this Thursday. We are the Capitalist Corner, and I am your host, Mark Pellegrino, and also the chairman of the American Capitalist Party, along with my co-.
It's a pretty good book. I really enjoyed reading it. It's about a race war between blacks and Jews in New York City. But it's really, when you get down to it, it's about individualism, integrity. It's a really, really good book. And he and I had a great discussion about it, and that's out now. And next week, we got some great stuff coming too with Sheldon Richman, Catherine Dickerson. So all's good. I also have some debates.
And philosophy teacher in upstate New York turned novelist. I just have to say our disclaimer here, folks. We're a couple of capitalists talking about news and other things. We have a very special guest today I'm going to introduce in a second. But we are not affiliated with the American Capitalist Party, though we are the chair and vice chair. What we say here is completely our own opinion. We have to say this for legal reasons. I am really feeling blessed right now to have this amazing guest on, Kiyah Willis. I discovered her a couple of years ago on Twitter, doom scrolling through Twitter as I often do, since it's become such a toxic space, looking for some voice of clarity and sanity. And here I stumbled upon her, and I've been a Kiyah addict ever since, I have to say. I look for your tweets, I retweet your stuff because it's amazingly clear, amazingly coherent in crazy, incoherent times. We're living really at the crest of an irrationalist movement here. And here you come along, bringing light to the darkness. So I want to introduce our audience to Kiyah. If you haven't followed her already on Twitter, please do. Kiyah, what's your Twitter handle so people can follow you immediately on that?
Yeah, my Twitter handle it's Kiyah Willis, so just my full name.
That's great, of course. And she also has a Substack, which you should be subscribing to yesterday. I subscribed to it today after reading a fantastic article on the tribalism of the right. Kiyah,
I love that. I love what you just said. Everybody else should subscribe yesterday. You subscribe today.
I did, but
nice.
I just discovered that she had a Substack today, so that's my bad. But I've been working a lot, so I've been sort of...
You are an actor, yes.
I am an actor, yes. That's always my reason for everything. So Kiyah, I want to talk to you a little bit about your journey, because I know that you started on the left, right? As I did, as many of us do, and you turned in another direction entirely. Can you tell us how you started off? Tell us about your political and philosophical leanings when you were younger.
Yeah, so I guess I was born into a family that was very, I guess, woke from like a very young age. So I was taught growing up pretty much, and a lot of people, they want me to define the word woke. So let me put my definition out there so there's no confusion. That pretty much there are these systems of oppression that exist in society that you can tell who is oppressed and who is an oppressor based on group performances and things, right? So average income for white Americans is greater than Black Americans, therefore Black people are oppressed. There are fewer women in STEM than men, therefore women are oppressed. There are people who are mean to, gay people, therefore gay people are oppressed because, and there is, discrimination and those things are real. But this oppressor-oppressed dichotomy, it's supposedly in all of our institutions and law everywhere, even if it's invisible and there aren't actually policies there that discriminate. If you look at these differences in group outcome or these differences in group experience, that's supposed to be proof that the entire country is against everyone and trying to oppress people. So that was what I was taught from a young age, was if you look at these group average differences in outcome, that is proof that the country is evil and discriminatory. And so I should really, I wasn't told necessarily to hate America outright, but very subconsciously, that was what I believed. our country was inherently evil. And so with that belief set, growing up, I was constantly looking for this proof, looking for this evidence of this invisible oppression that was coming down from, um, the government, my school, every situation that I was in.
Now, did this come to you via school, or was it also at your home? Was it confirmed by your home? Tell me about that. I don't want to get too personal if you don't want to get too personal, but tell me about that situation.
Yeah, so it was both, I would say. Definitely with race, mostly at home. I'm Black, so that's kind of typical being.
You are? No one told me.
But yeah, so like in my community growing up, that was very common, was like, oh, white people are being racist towards you, even if they aren't saying anything racist, subconsciously they are being racist towards you, and you just need to look for the evidence that they're racist. But when I was in school, we had a very robust DEI program. And so that was when I was introduced more to some of these other examples, kind of the socioeconomic, that like, you have the rich and the poor, and the rich are oppressing the poor. Definitely more along the gender identity and the like male, female, feminist sort of style of that. But yeah, so a combination of home and then adding some of them on, some of the other like identity groups on later when I was in school through DEI.
So where did you grow up, if you don't mind my asking? Where did you go to school?
Yeah, so I've lived all over, but I went to high school in Texas, in Dallas. And so that was actually where I was mostly kind of indoctrinated into it. And I went to a religious high school in a very conservative area, actually. So when I say that, people are pretty shocked, but that is where I learned most of this, was at my Christian high school.
I mean, we're atheists here, but do you think anything in that Christian upbringing in that high school and in the education that you received in that high school planted seeds that could help you turn away from the very things that they were teaching you? You understand what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, not
That's
really.
that's
Yeah,
interesting.
I was religious when I was younger. I'm also an atheist now, and I think that leaving religion and leaving wokeness were actually like very tied together in my like personal journey, because I think religion definitely made me believe that, I don't need evidence to believe things, and I should be kind of listening to authority to determine how to live my life. And so when I was told all this other woke stuff from the same people who were telling me, morality comes from God, it was like, oh, okay, well, you are the authority on morality, and so therefore this other stuff you're telling me must also be true.
Wow, that's interesting. That's very, very interesting. So you go through school, your home life basically is being confirmed, your biases are being confirmed in school. And then so you go to college. I'm sure your biases are then being even more confirmed in college. When does the turn happen, and what was there a watershed moment that did it for you?
Yeah, so I think so just a little bit about college before I get into what turned me out of it. But the gender identity was a really big part of my belief system going into college. So believing that you can identify as 500 different genders, a tree, planet Jupiter, all of that craziness that you see with like my generation and people who are in college and around. I started college in 2017, so around that 2020 era. And so I actually identified as non-binary when I was in college. I believed, I was a true believer in gender ideology, not just a like, oh, but it's nice to respect people's pronouns. Like I fully believed that I could just identify out of being a woman. And how I started shifting out of the like woke mindset was I actually ended up in the hospital. I have an autoimmune disorder, and I was diagnosed when I was 18. So it was towards the end of my freshman year of college. And I'm in the hospital. I was the youngest person on my floor that I was being treated on. And I was like, you know what? I think I really want a female nurse to help me because I couldn't do anything for myself. I needed help with, all the basic bathroom, shower, changing. But because I didn't really believe in the difference between male and female, I believed you could identify as anything that you wanted and it was all valid. It was hard in my mind to go, okay, I want a female nurse to take care of me, but what does that even mean? Because at this point, I believe everyone's identity is, valid, and you can't tell what anyone's identity is. It's based on their feeling and their experiences. And so how can I even say I want a female nurse if I can't define what that is? If someone comes in and I think they're a female nurse, but they identify as something else, does that mean I should ask for somebody else to be my nurse? Or if a male nurse comes in and says that they're a woman, is that okay? And does that mean that my discomfort is invalid? So all of these questions are rushing through my head, and I kind of had to come to the conclusion of, maybe something that I believed was something in my thinking was wrong, because it doesn't make sense that I am trying to convince myself to be in this very uncomfortable situation based on what I believed about gender identity, which obviously was not based in biology and the realities of difference between men and women.
So you checked your premises. Basically, reality interfered with your preconceptions of things, and you checked it against that and found your premises wanting. And so you began to change. Now, I mean, that's pretty significant. So what happened? I suppose you got a biologically female nurse to help you, and that began a change. So tell me a little bit more about that, because now you're in a community, I'm imagining a college community that fully buys into all of the narratives that you held true. And now you have to face the doubt that you have now with whether or not these narratives are true. And I imagine what could become community pressure from everybody else now who hasn't checked their premises as you have. Now, what happened after that?
Yeah, so I went back to school. I guess at that point, a lot of doubts. I'm ashamed to say I didn't immediately go, oh, well, this is just bullshit. Oh, wait, sorry. I don't know if I can curse on here. But
you can swear.
Okay. This is BS. And I'm just done with it. That was not what happened. I had a lot of doubts because I was like, well, I'm in university. All of the people who are smarter than me, my professors, all of the authority, right? They're telling me that I'm supposed to validate people's identities. I'm supposed to ignore what's right in front of my eyes if it, offends people. And so I went back to school, and I honestly kind of tried to keep pretending that everything was normal and everything was the same as it was before. But once that kind of cat was out of the bag and I had activated my ability to think, and I was starting to use my brain a bit more, it was really hard because I'm like, okay, I know something's wrong, but I was kind of almost afraid to go down that rabbit hole of actually exploring, what is the truth here? And if everyone around me is wrong about this, what does this actually mean about, the college that I'm going to, that I'm trusting with my education, about the culture and my friends that I have. I was definitely afraid of losing friends. I was definitely afraid of them thinking that I was a bad person. And then again, I was afraid that my professors and the people who I really respected, maybe they were feeding me more bad information about other things that I believed. And does that mean I have to tear down everything if what I believe about the world is wrong, from a fundamental level?
What were you studying?
I got a question real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm dying to ask this because I'm noticing that there's books behind you.
Oh,
yeah. And I'm just curious what role reading played in what books you were reading that helped you to change your mind or change the way you viewed the world.
Yeah. So, books didn't actually play a huge part in getting me out. It just helped me since I've started just diving deeper into a lot of these ideas more recently to understand where they've come from and help me kind of integrate a lot of the ideas that I have now. But I didn't do a lot of reading. I sat with myself, especially during COVID, because we had lockdown, I wasn't in school. I sat and I journaled a lot, and that helped me get out of a lot of my thoughts.
I love this in a way, Michael, because so many people turn to reason because they're exposed to a book, maybe say by Ayn Rand, and that turns them on to something. It sort of gives a voice to a feeling that they've had all along, and it sort of resonates with them. But what you did, Kiyah, is something to me extraordinary. In the face of all kinds of social pressure, familial pressure, to think a certain way, independently, you came to these conclusions. Just you reasoning through things and questioning your own premises, without the help or guidance of a philosopher. You did this all on your own, which makes you a candidate, I have to say, for our Saturday show, Self-Made Soul. You are completely a self-made soul. I love that. I want to know, but what were you studying, and what was the stuff that you were studying particularly focused on these kinds of social narratives, so that they were constantly being reinforced and you would constantly have to confront these narratives every day?
So yes and no. So I was actually studying data science,
No.
which you would think would mean that I was it was easier for me to break out of this stuff because, I'm looking at data all the time. But the way that my classes and the way that data was kind of explained to me, I was always a math person. I loved math growing up. But when it came to interpreting the data and the stats I was working with, it was always through the lens of use the data to prove the things you already believe, essentially. We took classes on this thing called like data ethics. And in data ethics, it's like you are supposed to essentially not use certain data or kind of ignore data if it's considered like offensive. So that was something that I believed was there's like good data and bad data. There's the data that's like white supremacists use, and then there's the data that is good data that reinforces the things that I already believe, as if data has ideology. But
Well, that's funny. So that's really funny. So you have this turn in you now. There has to be a coming out period. I mean, I'm assuming before Twitter. Maybe I'm wrong, but there has to be a coming out period. And did this coming out period happen while you were in school? If so, what were the consequences, or did it come out after? Did you maintain a low profile, as you might have to maintain your grades, to graduate, to keep, not create too many ripples in the pool? Did you come out later? Tell me about that coming out experience.
yes, so my coming out was actually after I was on Twitter. I did kind of just keep my head down, graduated from school. I started a job. I was working at this small marketing analytics company right after college. And I started Twitter because I felt like I had understood a lot of, I guess now I would say like kind of the fundamental principles of what I believe. Like I was definitely like, I like free markets. I like individualism. I think logic is good. But I didn't know if there's anybody else who kind of believed that stuff, if there was a community for that, because everyone around me was definitely not on board with that. So I started my Twitter. I was a anonymous account at first, and I was posting, and I actually started gaining followers anonymous. And then one day I went, screw it, I'm putting my name out there, because there are so many people who are following me because they're like, I'm afraid to speak out about this stuff. And so that was when I was like, I'm just going public with my name, and we'll see if this comes back to bite me in the ass. Hopefully not. But yeah, so it wasn't really a coming out with like my friends and things. I think by that point I had actually just really distanced myself from a lot of people that I went to school with, because I just felt like they were a negative like impact on my life. And I just felt like I couldn't talk to them about things because there wasn't that same desire to learn and understand the world. It was just a lot of reinforcing things, the false things that they already believed that I had believed in the past. So I distanced myself, and then, started Twitter.
Now, Have those friends, I put that in scare quotes, have they since approached you now that you're fully out and identified on Twitter as somebody who's an independent thinker? You're not a tribalist. You're pro reason, pro individualism, all these things that seem to be anathema to pretty much everybody today. Have they since approached you, and what are their reactions to you?
Yeah, I have gotten a few messages from people who are like, I had no idea you were such a transphobe, bigoted, genocide enabling, like, so.
Welcome to my world.
Yeah. So, yeah, nothing nice, but some people have seen my content, so.
Now, do you still continue to work in that data world, and is that what you're doing, or are you now devoting yourself full time to ideas and producing ideas online?
Yeah, I'm a full-time content creator, so I don't do any data professionally, but I do look at data when it comes to making my content sometimes, because I still want to know what's going on in the world and make sure it's
Sure.
based in facts. But yeah, I do content full-time.
Oh, that's great, because you should. I mean, we need more voices like yours. There's just not enough. Now, in your Substack article, you talked about that the terrible thing that was discovered with these quote unquote young Republican leaders and the kinds of emails they were sending themselves, exposing a very deep rooted racism within this community. But what was even worse were the thought leaders of the quote unquote Republicans' response to this sort of stuff. Let's talk about that a little bit, because I thought your Substack article was brilliant about that. But let's talk about that, because I think that's what we're facing today. You, Michael, and I, we're on the fringe because we're independent thinkers and we believe in individualism, and we don't buy into the tribalism on either side. But the tribalism seems to be entrenching itself and getting stronger and stronger. And people are increasingly seeing those two alternatives as the only two alternatives that exist out there, while I think we are trying to bring something different to the argument, a third way. So talk a little bit about that article and your discoveries with respect to some of the thought leaders that were excusing these behaviors.
Yeah, it's been really disappointing to see a lot of the, I guess, conservative or Republican thought leaders dismissing this, because when I came out of the left, or I guess the Democrats, I did see at first the Republicans and the conservatives as a better option. I was never fully on board. I said I'm not religious, so a lot of that was never quite up my alley, but I did see them as a better option. I think what we're seeing is, I want to say, people prioritizing strategy in a sense. Believing that, well, the Democrats and the left is quote unquote winning because they're diving into this tribalism, and so we should do the same thing so that we can win. I do think that there is a growing amount of people who do believe a lot of the same things as the left, or as like the Democrats, in the sense of the identity politics and the idea now that we're seeing that there is this new oppressor-oppressed dichotomy. The Jews are oppressing everybody. But I think that for some of these people like Vance and Walsh, who I specifically name in the article, who are coming out in defense of some of these people, I don't necessarily know if they fully believe, are like true believers, that the Jews are oppressing people, or, what these kind of neo-Nazis are saying. But I do think that there is this, well, strategically, the Democrats have been doing this for years, so we're going to do the same thing. And it's more of a, I guess you can't really be like amoral, but that's kind of the term that I've like kind of been using. It's like, it's not amoral in the sense that what they're doing is neutral, but amoral in the sense that they aren't taking morality into consideration. It's not about doing what's right or what's wrong. It's about morality doesn't matter. Let's just do what we think is going to get someone wearing red into office.
Do you think that's sort of the result of Trump, who we consider to be sort of the ultimate pragmatist? He has no principles. He's a pragmatist entirely. it seems like the right has embraced pragmatism now as a political ideal, and they're going to use whatever means necessary to enable them to maintain the levers of power, including recently, Michael, I don't know if you heard Trump saying that they're going to use the nuclear option and blow away the filibuster, which we know will bite them in the ass 5 years from now. But he doesn't seem to think 5 years in advance. It's only what he wants now, what seems to be working now. Do you think this is a Trump phenomenon? I mean, the right used to have one foot on the ground. I used to read guys like Charles Krauthammer and Thomas Sowell, who I still read Thomas Sowell, Walter Williams, Cal Thomas. All these guys, they were considered the right, but they had one foot on the ground. They may have the other foot into mysticism and things that I didn't agree with, but at least they were grounded to a certain degree. Now I feel there's none of that. There's no foundation at all for these guys.
Yeah, I do think that, Trump is part of the issue, definitely. Because, I've talked about this a little bit, and you're right. Sorry, I'm processing as we're talking. That, Trump has been kind of the ultimate pragmatist when it's come to just doing what he thinks is going to make him win, versus, doing what's right. I also think that there is an amount of revenge, in a sense, which is maybe even less than like I'm just trying to win, but I think there is also this the Democrats did this to us, so we're going to do the same thing back and give them a taste of their own medicine. And I've seen this a lot, like in my comments, people are like, but they did it first, and so we need to do it. It's okay because they made it okay to do it. Like they set the precedent that this okay, therefore we're just going to do it because they've said it's okay. So
I have a friend who has Trump derangement syndrome. He lives in Colorado. Good friend, love your Rod, known you for 40 years, but my God, I've been trying to talk him out of Trump for ages, and I get the same feeling like he's been marginalized to such a degree by the left for so long that he's harboring real resentment, and he feels like Trump is the only guy that fights for him, and I think that's part of Trump's accidental strength is he happens to be at the right place at the right time. Michael, you raised your hand like you wanted to say something.
I do. I personally think that Trump has played a big part in the rise of what some people call the woke right. And the reason I think is because he's so dishonest, and there's been such an abundance of people that are influencers that have been willing to defend him for so long, all the lies he tells, starting, back with Rush Limbaugh and Sean Hannity, that now it's caused the ascendance of people like Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, Nick Fuentes, Dave Smith. And I've seen that you've posted that you are not uniting with these kinds of people, like you refuse to, because that's the big call out there. Unite the right. Don't criticize the right, only criticize the left. I'm just curious what your thoughts are on these people. The four I mentioned specifically, Tucker, Candace, Dave Smith, and Nick Fuentes, and what motivates them? Because I go back and forth. Is it dishonesty, or are they just crazy? I don't know. What do you think?
I think that they're actually like different reasons for each of them, to be honest. I think that Candace might be crazy. I think that she might just have something diagnosably wrong with her. I maybe, but probably. I think Tucker has seen that this is. I think Tucker has probably just a grifter, and I use that word with caution because I know people throw that word around a lot, but I think that he might just be doing this because he has seen that it gets him views, and he has seen that there is unfortunately, a market demand for someone like him, and I think that for him might be the case. With Fuentes and with Dave Smith, I think that they are fully true believers in what they say. I do think that Fuentes has legitimate, or has a sincere hatred for Jews, a sincere hatred for America. He's talked about how this is stemmed from what Ben Shapiro called him anti-Semitic once, 10 years ago, and he's never gotten over it. He's been holding on to this resentment forever. I think that Tucker's probably doing this because he's getting paid to do it. I think Nick Fuentes really just has not let go of this 10-year-long grudge against Ben Shapiro. And I think Dave Smith is also, again, a true believer, but I think it's more tied to his hatred of America and the government, because he considers himself an ANCAP, but I think that he really just hates all governments, and especially the American government. So I hope that kind of.
I think that's that seems about right to me too. Although I think with Dave Smith, he's been exposed so many times by so many really good intellectuals. I mean, Coleman just did it recently. I mean, just literally exposed him. There's a point at which an honest human being has to look at himself and say, I'm really barking up the wrong tree, as you did. You were an honest human being. You looked at your thoughts. They didn't match up to reality. You changed your thoughts. You changed them to conform with reality. Dave's not doing that. And I get the sense that even though, yes, I think so much of his motivation comes from hating government in general, hating states in general, and he's just going to crap all over any state, irrespective of, the context. There's a part of him that is so invested now in this narrative, and it has given him a following that he never achieved as a comedian. As a comedian, he was not even the guy wasn't even known. I don't think he's ever done a show that was, outside maybe a midnight gig at the Yuck Yucks. I mean, his only claim to fame was knowing Rogan and Rogan putting him on the map. And then he made his bones by being anti-Israel. And once you start making a living that way, once you start making your reputation that way, it becomes really, really hard. You have to be a person of extreme integrity to turn around and say, I was wrong about everything. Because then you risk losing your base. And one thing I've noticed about Dave is he's huge on the amount of followers he has. He talks about ratioing people, not understanding that doesn't matter. That doesn't mean anything with respect to the truth of what you're saying. He's big on that. Like when he talks about, I've read this book and this book by this expert and this expert, always arguments from authority. He's big on that kind of thing. And I can't help but think that reputational thing, he doesn't want to lose that. He doesn't want to lose the followers that he's acquired because he wants fame. He wants to be famous.
It's funny. I'm not a Dave Smith fan, but as you can tell, Mark isn't either. And we have somebody in the audience who feels the same way. So once Dave's name comes up, all the ire comes out towards Dave. Now, you are a supporter of Israel from what I could gather, but you've also been critical of Israel. And I listened to Dave Smith's interview the other day with Tucker Carlson. So they were talking about it's just they hate their tax dollars going towards violence. They're just peaceful people who don't want their tax dollars going towards violence. So personally, I'm opposed to foreign aid, but I'm also opposed to blowing up bombs. I mean, blowing up boats that have alleged cartels on them. I'm against releasing ICE and the National Guard in America. I'm against the American citizens who are caught up in that. So I asked a question on X, and I said, if they're so opposed to violence, why don't I hear more coming from them about these things, about bombing Venezuelan boats or the ICE, the National Guard, the military on American soil? I mean, I looked through Dave's entire feed and saw nothing. I looked through all his podcast episodes and saw nothing. And one person came out and said, no, Dave does talk about this regularly. And what he did was he pointed to one episode where he talked about it for 18 minutes. In that 18 minutes at the beginning, he says, we haven't been talking about this. Interspersed in that 18 minutes, he, of course, threw in the injustices caused by Israel, the injustice of bombing Iran. And then at the end of the 18 minutes, he, of course, went right to Israel. But the person defending him said, oh, now you're saying that it has to be the amount you want. And I'm like, dude, you said it was regularly. But that's the type of shift that people do. And a big thing that I think is a problem is the epistemology. And you're as a data scientist, it's the way people go about gathering and analyzing information. Do you see a problem in our culture where that is a big problem, where people don't know how to assess a source, assess information?
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said earlier, what I was taught about data in school was you essentially cherry pick the data that fits what you already believe to be true. And I think that that's exactly what either Dave Smith and some of these other people are doing. It's, well, I already believe that Israel is bad, or I already believe that, this thing is true. And so everything that supports that, I'm going to look into, and anything that isn't, or what I hear today, it's Zionist propaganda, or it's so. Well, when you already have that as your foundational belief when it goes into research, right? Everything that supports what I believe is true, and everything that doesn't is propaganda. Then it's pretty easy to dig yourself into these holes where you just keep reinforcing these non-true beliefs that you have.
Absolutely. There's a question for you in the private chat here, Kiyah. It says, is the left or the right the bigger threat today?
Well, I consider the neo-Nazis to be on the left. So
do I. Thank you. Now, why don't more people understand that is from the left? Why don't they understand this is a monster from the left? Well, that could be a topic for another discussion, but I also consider that a left-wing thing. But go ahead.
So I would say the left by that definition. But if you mean, the neo-Nazis versus the social justice warriors, who is a bigger threat? They're both really bad.
I
think
agree.
I think that in the immediate future, I think we're going to probably see more bad things coming from the Democrats. But I think in 5-10 years, as more of the groypers come of voting age, we're going to see way more coming from the Republicans, because my generation is now becoming old enough to really influence politics, and we are all very extreme socialists. Like Mamdani winning was very much like my generation did that, but the groypers are a little bit younger than me, and I think that when they take into politics in a few years, we're going to see a lot more from them. So
yeah, they're a little young, a lot creepy. Kiyah, I'm interested to think what you think about my view on this, because a lot of people say this. They'll say, well, who's the bigger threat, the left or the right? And that's where we have to devote our energy. But I don't really look at either side as being a bigger threat. I look at them as being different variants of irrationality and dishonesty, and therefore I fight them all. And it just happens to be that right now our president is on the right. When Obama was in office, most of my ire was directed toward him, because that's where the center of power was. So I just think that it's the wrong way to look at it. And I think there's people that are, especially in Mark and my camp, as objectivists. I'm not sure if you're an objectivist. I know you do write sometimes for the Objective Standard Institute. But there's the objectivists who say we need to focus on this side or we need to focus on that side. But to me, they're all wrong. And wherever irrationality is allowed to peek its ugly head, that's where the threat is, and that's where we need to direct our attention. What do you think about from my perspective?
Absolutely. Yeah, the real enemy is the education system. But yeah, absolutely. Authoritarianism and just irrationality really are the enemies, and that's why I guess I consider both the neo-Nazis and the social justice warriors on the left, is because I think that they all come from that same camp of really moving our country in the same direction towards more rationality, more authoritarianism. But I agree with everything you said.
Yeah, I think basically there's collectivism versus individualism, and that's the real fight that we have out there. Now, you said something that I totally agree with. The real problem is the educational system. What would be your solution? Now, we as Capitalist Party members do have an idea about what the solution would be, but I want to hear from you what you think. How could you cure this sick educational system?
Yeah, it's really hard. I'd say the first thing that I would say is the government needs to not be involved in it, because I think that that's a big part of it. But I also think that because I want to homeschool when I have kids, and that's something that's really important to me. But I also think that we need adults who really care about being a part of their child's education too. Because if, let's say that the government gets out of the education system, and then we don't have this nationalized, terrible curriculum that teaches kids not to think and, is kind of indoctrinating them into these ideas. If we have a bunch of private schools or homeschools, they're doing the same thing that doesn't really fix the problem. So I think it's also, yeah, just adults really caring about the future that their kids are going to be growing up in, and caring about what their lives are going to be like, and doing their own research into this. Yeah, this is what I want for my kids' future. So these are the ideas that I want them to learn. So I'm going to go out of my way to put them into private school or homeschool them with these values.
I agree with you. Now, Kiyah Felix says something here for you. I don't remember you saying this, but maybe I just missed something. Kiyah Felix says, I'm more interested in what she saw as better in Republicans. I liked Ted Cruz before he sold his soul to MAGA. I never liked Trump. So it's hard to understand how someone could think they're better. Now, I know I, at one time, thought the Republicans, in the 90s, perhaps, maybe a little earlier, had one foot on the ground, the other foot in outer space somewhere, but one foot on the ground, whereas the Democrats had based their entire conceptual framework on floating abstraction. So they were never touching grass at any point in their life. But did you feel the same way? Is Kiyah hitting something here true, that you thought there was something better in Republicans than Democrats at first?
Yeah, I did think there was something better in Republicans and Democrats. I mean, Republicans at least talked about liberty and would talk about things like free speech and gun rights and lower taxes and free markets and stuff. And so even though they weren't entirely, perfect on all of these issues, there was something about that struck me of like, oh, at least they care somewhat about liberty, where the Democrats were like, liberty, who cares about that? Like, government's
Right.
what we want. And then the same thing culturally with kind of the conservative versus kind of leftist like political commentators, and especially the big voices. There was a certain amount of coming out of, at least what I saw in 2020 and 2021, people saying things like, we don't support the racism coming out of the left, the anti-white racism, the racism of like low expectations towards minorities. We believe in merit. We believe in, again, like having debates and not shutting people down for having thoughts that we disagree with. So there were things coming out of kind of the conservative movement that I thought were better at the time, and now it seems like there's moving away from a lot of that. But
Yeah, I mean,
I fell for the same thing.
yeah,
as did I. I mean, I think in your transition from extreme left to a liberty-minded classical liberal, you have to sort of go through a conservative stage, and I think it's because conservatism in America should have represented the conservation of classical liberalism. So it should have been about constitutional government, constitutionally restrained government, and free markets and free minds. That would have been the tradition that conservatives should have been trying to preserve, but they went another route. In fact, I had an argument, Michael and Kiyah, today with this nationalist who is literally saying, if it comes down between liberty and nationalism, which he considers the kind of collectivism he likes, my neighborhood, my family, my state, above all else, then fuck liberty. I mean, that was literally what this guy said, and this is literally the way the right is now going. So I feel like we're in a 1930s struggle, but it's a false dichotomy, but between the commies and the fascists, two versions of left-wing collectivism battling out for supremacy, while the true classical liberalism is being sidelined and marginalized. But that's the voice that needs to be heard now. And folks, if you want to hear that voice, you got to go to AmericanCapitalistParty.org. You got to donate. You got to be a part of the change. Let's be that third wave, folks. There's collectivism and individualism. That's the only two ways in which a society can organize itself. And you don't want the first, you want the second, because that's what's going to enable you to be free and to realize your potential and to be a happy human being. What do you think about the election of Mamdani? I said it right, Michael, for the first time in like 17 tries.
It's more than 17, but you did say it. You did say it correctly.
Fuck it up. I had to really think about it.
See, I know what she thinks because I was reading her X post this morning.
Yes, and I know as well, but I want everybody else out there who might not be familiar with her X posts to get a dose.
They need to become familiar with her X posts.
Indeed. So tell me what you think about this. Well, I'm gonna give away my point of view of it. Horrible thing that happened in New York City.
Yeah, really, really bad. I posted a video about this yesterday. I think there's a big issue. I talked about this a little bit earlier, but I think my generation has been so failed by the education system. We, I mean, I guess maybe not me anymore, but Gen Z, we were raised to believe that like socialism was a good thing, or at least a not terrible thing. We weren't really taught about the horrors of, say, the Soviet Union. We weren't really taught about, Cuba and Venezuela and North Korea and all of these countries now that are so horribly oppressed, and how people are poor and miserable there. And so when people say socialism, people just think, oh, we get free things, we get like we get free food, we get free housing, we get free healthcare. Oh, we like free things. This is nice. And so I think that there are some people definitely who support socialism knowing what it is and who are actively trying to move America in that direction. But I do think that a lot of people, especially young people, I think 75% of voters age 18 to 29 voted for Mamdani in New York. And a lot of them did it because they were like, New York is expensive. Our rent's going up. We can't afford to buy a house because things are getting so expensive. And so Mamdani said things are going to be free, and they say, yay, this is great. I think there is obviously a cultural issue of there are people, I said, who do legitimately want socialism and who really hate America and want to destroy it, but there is also just so many ignorant people who have no idea what they're signing up for with this guy.
Indeed. I want to throw a few compliments your way via the audience. Kiyah Felix says your videos are great too. Responding to Nicole Hingle is saying her posts are amazing. Also, Nicole says, Miss Willis, you are brilliant and brave. I followed you recently on X. I'm so glad I did. That's right, folks. You got to follow her. She is literally one of the few rational voices out there, especially on X, which I feel more and more is being taken over by. Is this an algorithm thing? Maybe you can tell me, because you know this stuff better than I do. Taking over by these crazy people. I don't understand how the Groypers and the Candace Owens and the Tucker Carlsons of the world continue to gain followers, while people like you gain followers, but slowly over time. It takes forever. When your message is so clean and clear and brilliant and easy for anybody to access, it's not like you're speaking in technical terms. Like a philosopher. There's no obscurantism in anything that you do. It's so plain and simple and perfect. In fact, Kiyah, I want you to run for president. Please. I know you're too young to, but can you? Can you, please? Also, oh boy. Well, somebody says, Mark, tell her to marry him. Yeah, there's somebody out there who's proposing marriage to you. Bring her on Rogan. Yeah, you should be on Rogan. Rogan has to hear you. Lex Friedman has to hear you.
I don't think she should go on Rogan.
I do, only for the exposure.
No,
I do only for the exposure. He's the biggest guy. He's the biggest guy out there.
He is, and he's somebody without any concern for truth.
Okay, well, we'll leave that up to Kiyah and her principles, but I think it would be great for people to be exposed to her on a mass scale. We're talking millions upon millions of people, because at least a few 100,000 of those are going to pick up her message and say, "This is great. I'm going to stick with this," and that's influencing. Have you ever now? Are you considering? I know what the correct answer to this should be, but anyway, are you considering running for an office one day, political office?
I've had that suggested before. I don't know. Politics just seems so messy and gross, and so I think if I thought that there was positive things I could do within office, I would totally be willing to do that. But right now, it just seems so. I mean, not to use Trump's term, but so swampy that it sometimes feels better to post online and try to change minds on the ground than to get involved in all the yuckiness.
I couldn't agree with you more. Unfortunately, somebody has to get in there and do what Trump was supposed to do in his original mandate in 2016 to clean out the swamp. It's like everybody knows it's a swamp. Everybody knows it's a bureaucratic hell. Everybody knows unelected officials are running the show. and nobody in Washington is accountable to the people anymore. They know 99% of what is being done in government is unconstitutional, and yet maybe 2 people in Congress have the cashews to stand up to it. I would certainly wish you would be a third, because you're a powerful voice for reason out there. And I've seen what one powerful voice for reason could do. We know Alex Epstein. Alex Epstein wrote a book called The Moral Case for Fossil Fuels and Fossil Future.
That's in their background.
Yeah, he's testified before Congress, and I thought he changed the entire lexicon with respect to the environmental movement. I think the environmental movement is now forced into a more pro-human thriving area because of one single person, one single rational voice who knew exactly how to communicate. Like you, there's so much you can do. And perhaps you're right. Maybe you can do it best from an area outside of politics, because it's so messy and dirty, and it's not about ideas anymore. It's just about winning, and however you win is irrelevant. The ends justify the means. Here you can probably influence the culture a lot more deeply, but hopefully there'll be an opportunity for somebody like you to be in office to affect real change, because I think we would all be better off for it, because we're in a real rut right now, I think, politically. What were you going to say, Michael? Did I cut you off?
No, not really. I was going to cut you off, but we have a guest, so I decided to show some manners that I normally don't show. I'm just curious, what are the other books? That looks like Thomas Sowell behind you, if I'm not mistaken, but what else do you have?
Yeah, I've got a few. I've got, basic economics. I have An Inconvenient Minority, which is about affirmative action. Cynical Theories, which is James Lindsay's book about wokeness.
Oh.
Which is really good. Yep, Alex Epstein's Fossil Future. Loving Life, who's by an objectivist, Craig Biddle. Really good book. And then, I see, out of frame over here, I've got Nothing Less Than Victory, about how to win wars, which was really helpful in my thinking about Israel. And
that's a great book.
Well, and that's a good segue. Speaking of affirmative action, I don't know if you know, who probably do, who Jason Riley is. I'm going to watch him debate at Soho. In 2 weeks?
I like Jason Riley. Who's he debating?
Some schmuck. I don't know who the guy is. Some guy that's wrong. But yeah, Mark, I think you'd be better equipped to ask about Israel, because that is definitely your bailiwick.
Yeah. So, okay, you are one of the few voices out there that has been saying the right things about Israel in the face of a storm of pro-Palestinian, mostly bots from Malaysia, and a lot of people getting paid to say this stuff, but still some true believers out there. I think personally, I've lost probably 10,000 fans, because my fan base happens to skew very left. And so they think that I'm a genocide and ethnic cleansing supporter by supporting Israel openly as I do. First of all, I want to ask you how you came to support Israel. It seems like a natural evolution from your development intellectually. But also, is Israel inviting you there because they should? And if you haven't already gone, you have to go, because it is one of the most amazing places on earth. So about the first one, it seems like a natural outgrowth of your intellectual development, but tell me how you got into this fight.
Yeah, I got into this fight on October 7th. I woke up and opened Twitter and saw people dying and went, oh, this is really bad. Something really bad is going on. And then I saw people cheering for it. And I was, oh, that's also very bad. And so pretty much, seeing people cheering for massacring of people at a music festival made me want to dig into kind of what was going on. And I had already, in the past, when I was in college, I was very vaguely anti-Israel, because everybody in college is. But I do remember kind of coming out of that phase pretty much being like, I don't think that what I'm being told about Israel is true. I just had never really dove into it until October 7th, 2023. But seeing those same people or the same types of people who had told me in the past that Israel was this evil, genocidal, apartheid state, then cheering on October 7th was really this wake-up call of, okay, these are the same people who led me astray about some other issues. now they are celebrating murdering innocent people. I really need to do some research into what's going on here, because I'm almost certain that what they're saying isn't true. And so, yeah, that was just a little bit of history, and was what got me here. And have I been to Israel? I have not yet. I actually was scheduled to go twice, and my trips got canceled because it was too dangerous. The times I was going happened to coincide with some of the attacks that were happening. So I have not been yet, but I do want to go. So if anyone wants to take me to Israel, who's watching, reach out.
This Eutychus guy in our chat might want to take you.
I might have some connections in that respect, Kiyah. So I went with American Voices in Israel. I don't know that organization is still sending American influencers out to Israel anymore, but I can certainly find out, because I know some people. You got to go. I think it'll be a transformative experience for you. It was for me, and I'm an atheist, and I still had a transformative experience in the heart of all of the places from the Bible. But do you get a lot of blowback? I mean, for me, defending Israel is a massive. How can I say this? I really go out on a limb, because I know I lose hundreds upon hundreds of followers who are convinced that Israel is a colonial power, which blows my mind, since it seems like the Arabs came from one peninsula and spread out over 55 countries. That seems more colonial and imperialistic to me than a few people migrating to a tiny little patch of land and never expanding beyond that land, except when they had to take territory to protect themselves from hostile folks. That seems less colonial. But I mean, do you get a lot of blowback for that? Do you feel like it affects you in any way that is threatening or potentially threatening to? I mean, as an influencer, perhaps you're uncancelable in a way. I'm not uncancelable.
So yeah, I've definitely gotten a lot of mean comments, but I've had to have security at some of my events that I've done. I went to King's College, or I was supposed to speak at King's College in London last year about Israel, and there were so many threats they had to shut down the event. I was in London. My panelists that I was with, we had to go flee the city and do the event remotely from outside of London because there were so many threats. Last year I spoke at a conference in Atlanta at Level Up, Objective Center Institute's conference. And I had to have security there because I had someone who had sent me a message that they were going to come to the event and find me. So yeah, I've had some pretty serious security threats for speaking out about in support of Israel. But
so I am offering my services, even though I am an actor. I am pretty handy. I offer my services if ever you need them for protection. I'll stand up there and take one for you, because you're too precious a voice to lose. It's interesting because I was invited to the London City Comic-Con. I had to work. I got a show that I had to work on. I couldn't go, but I was actually thinking to myself, even when I went to Edinburgh last year, I'm wondering when some jihadist creep is going to, just sneak into one of these conventions with a machete or some kind of tool and try to come at me, especially in London. And I'm sure at some point I'm going to have to confront this eventuality, because these folks are violent and they're given space to be violent, which is what blows my mind, is how pussified the UK government is, how they're bending knees to this savagery, and how they would, they're more apt to arrest somebody for saying something shitty on social media than they are to arrest a knife-wielding maniac screaming Allahu Akbar in the streets. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Ugh. So anyway, you can take my personal offer or not. It's up to you. Anyway, tell us all of your social media contacts and your Substack so that the people out there can get them, and Persephone will post them as well so that people can look at them. Tell us all that stuff before we adjourn for the day.
Yeah, I am at Kiyah Willis on TikTok and Twitter. My Substack is called Growing to Truth. And I am at Kiyah Willis 12, I believe, on Instagram because my name was already taken. But yeah, that's where you can find me. Oh, and on YouTube, Kiyah Willis.
Great. And your talks are great. I love listening to those as well. Folks, Kiyah is a light in the darkness. Please, please follow her as soon as you can. Please listen to her material, read her Substacks. You'll be better off for it. You'll grow synapses in your brain. Just like watching Michael and the Rational Egoist, you're going to grow synapses. You're going to get smarter if you're actually watching these folks do their stuff. So, folks, we'll see you tomorrow. I'm back from location until Monday. Then, Mike, I have to go again. Sorry for a couple of days. I have to.
Wednesday the 19th, I won't be here, but that's a couple weeks from now.
Monday,
but you don't try to weasel out of the capitalist thought of the day, dude.
Oh, am I giving the capitalist thought of the day?
You just oughta.
Okay, great. Well, folks, if you want to live in a capitalist society, that means you want to live in a tribal-less society where the individual is the most important entity in the world. That means you, folks. You are the captain of your own destiny. You are the king of your own castle. Nobody can tell you what to do or how to do it. Your property is your own. The disposal of your property is your own. Your life is your own. That means you have full moral agency. That's the kind of world we want. Is it a world that provides perfect equality? Nope. But you benefit from that imperfect equality. People who are better than you and more energetic than you, better than you in the sense that they're more talented, better than you in the sense that they have more energy, more entrepreneurial skill, those people will help you. Why? Because in order for them to get rich, they have to trade those values with you. And more likely than not, those values will be more important to you than the dollar you have in your pocket, and you will be better off as a result. The world of capitalism is not a lose-win world. It's not a zero-sum game. It is a win-win scenario all the way around. And the rich get richer, of course, but the poor get richer too. That's the world in which we want to live. So go to AmericanCapitalistParty.org, donate, become a part of the change, folks. Visit Kiyah Willis, listen to what she has to say. She's a voice of reason. You're going to get smarter listening to her and reading her stuff. Also, Michael's Rational Ego is you're going to get smarter watching him. I guarantee it. You've got 23 hours to check your premises, folks. We'll be back here tomorrow, 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 p.m.
Slow down. Slow down.
What?
I gotta ask the question, dude. You're this is what happens when you take all these days off. You claim you're acting. I don't know what evidence there is of this other than you telling me.
The evidence is going to be in the TV show. Look at that.
I'm hoping the evidence. I'm hoping that mustache is the evidence. But anyways, so the guest here. I mean, not the guest. The question here is going to be. I'm going to piggyback on the question that came from Megan Ribbons. Go to YouTube and answer the question. Would you like to see us have more women guests on the show? Megan says she likes when we have women on the show.
Fantastic. Okay, guys, you heard that. Answer that on YouTube. Remember to like and subscribe before you leave. Remember to share it across social media platforms. You got 23 hours to do what Kiyah did, which changed her life. That is, check your premises, and you, like her, will be better off for the effort. We'll see you tomorrow, folks. Peace.